I spoke about this issue sometime this last week because I was saying it looks like the Writers Guild is starting to kind of buckle as you get high profile people like Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher talking about bringing their shows back, which in a time when the unions are trying to negotiate with studios, it doesn't help when you got people who are a part of that union saying that they're willing to come back whether a deal is reached or not, because that more or less puts negotiating, like, or at least it puts all the cards in the studio's hands when they know it's like, oh, there's people who are willing to come back whether a deal is reached or not. So they can be a little bit more hard lined on some of the issues that the Writers Guild doesn't want to budge on. As a result, Drew Barrymore, I think she was talking about bringing in outside writers for her show, and she got a lot of pushback, which is understandably so as a result of her decision. And she tried to make an apology video, which didn't come across very well because it came across more as like, let me explain myself and less of an apology. As a result, she did delete the video, and then she made another statement on her personal Instagram account yesterday saying that she will hold off on bringing her show back until this whole thing has been resolved with the studios. But Bill Maher, on the other hand, didn't make such a claim, or at least not according to this article from The Hollywood Reporter. Bill Maher holds off on real-time return as Writers Guild talks set to resume. So this, in a way, the statements he made, I think, kind of work in the studio's favor, even though he's not bringing back his show. Bill Maher will not return to his HBO show Real Time this week. The comedian says he'll hold off on resuming production on his weekly late night show for now. That's an important part to note, for now. After news late last week that the Writers Guild of America and Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers are working to set a time for a new round of contract negotiations. Now, this is according to what Bill Maher said. My decision to return to work was made when it seemed nothing was happening and there was no end in sight to the strike, Maher wrote on X, formerly Twitter. Now that both sides have agreed to go back to the negotiating table, I'm going to delay the return of Real Time for now and hope they can finally get this done. Now, this is obviously good news for the union that he's decided not to bring back his show. I mean, it was a little bit different than Drew Barrymore because he did say he was going to do it without writers and they were going to remove some segments from his show and anything like that. So it was going to be a different, more stripped down version of his show, but he was still coming back. And obviously that's not good because that's part of the strike is you remove these shows and other things like that from the studios in order to kind of use that as a negotiating tactic against these studios when it comes to these. But by having him come back, I mean, the studios are like, well, we're starting to see a sense of weakness within the union when you get people, especially high profile people like Bill Maher, saying they're willing to work without actually reaching an agreement. And he did say, like, yeah, he'll hold off as long as they're negotiating. But by saying it's only while they're negotiating, I mean, that kind of puts a little bit of some of the cards in the hands of the studios because they can be like, well, it looks like people are willing to come back to work even if we don't reach an agreement. So instead of saying like what Drew Barrymore said, where she's going to hold off until things are resolved, he's saying, I'm going to hold off as long as you're trying to negotiate. But I mean, if negotiations break down, I mean, there's nothing to say that he won't come back to his show. And this kind of what it goes on into the article. Real Time would not feature an opening monologue, desk piece, new rules, segment of any other pre-written material. Maher said the decision to return drew criticism from the WGA, which called Maher's move disappointing in a statement, and added, as a WGA member, Bill Maher is obligated to follow the strike rules and not perform any written services. It is difficult to imagine how Real Time can go forward without a violation of WGA strike rules taking place. And yeah, and that's the whole thing, is it would be violating the rules, and Bill Maher is saying, I don't care. And while Drew Barrymore said in her apology video that she was thinking of other people, I mean, that's probably true. I mean, she doesn't need the money. I mean, neither does Bill Maher. I mean, they have the money, but there are a lot of people who work on these productions. And Drew Barrymore is a little less defendable from the union's perspective because she was bringing in outside writers, or I think she was supposed to be bringing in outside writers. Bill Maher said he was doing it without writers and doing a different version of it. So I think his position is a little bit more defendable in that there are a lot of other people who work on these shows, a lot of other crew members who aren't involved with the writing aspect of it. I mean, these strikes going on, I mean, it's hurting a lot of these crew members who work on these shows, and they're not going to be benefiting from these new negotiations because they're not part of the Writers Guild. So in a way, they're kind of being screwed on this whole matter because the unions are striking, which is preventing them from working. And Bill Maher is saying like, well, I want to give them a chance to work and earn a paycheck because they're not earning a paycheck either. And they're not going to be getting any pay increase as a result of these strikes. So Bill Maher, from his perspective, he's basically saying, I'm going to do a show that's not going to be as good as my regular show, but it's going to be something that gives these other crew members a chance to work. Now, of course, pro-union people will say like it's not them that's causing these people to go out of work, and it's the studios. And I mean, I just say it takes two to tango on this whole thing right now. So I mean, like, I do wish there was something that could be done about these other crew members, because yeah, I mean, they are kind of being screwed by this whole deal. I mean, they're just basically a casualty of the whole thing. And ultimately, when this is all said and done, I mean, the Writers Guild, I mean, they don't care about them. The studios don't care about them. I mean, it's just kind of a whole mess. I mean, and a lot of people are involved with it. So I can understand Bill Maher saying like, I want to have them back in. But I mean, I think a lot of it, I'm not saying like Bill Maher is necessarily a great guy in this whole thing either. I mean, I do think he just kind of tired of this. I mean, he's made statements about the Writers Guild in his podcast saying that he thinks that they come across as entitled and stuff like that. So maybe he's just sick of this whole thing, just wants to be done with it. And like a lot of people like things when they're back to normal, and that comes, I mean, I think that might be what his motivation in all this is. But either way, I mean, this isn't good for the Writers Guild when you have someone like Bill Maher basically saying, yeah, I'm willing to come back no matter what, just whether a deal's reached or a deal isn't reached. And I think his view on this is kind of indicative of a lot of other people within the union, and the studios can see that, and it's basically blood in the water right now. So we'll see what happens when negotiations resume, because the studios see this as like, okay, things are coming and falling in our favor, so let's see what happens. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure you click the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.